Tomorrow, July 7th, we are at the showdown. Synodality, that word that for years we have heard resonating like a refrain in speeches and documents, tomorrow something very concrete is ready to come down on the table. The document on the implementation of synodality, both awaited and feared, will finally be made public. A document that can change the Church forever. To understand more about what could happen, stay until the end. The Church is on the eve of a revolution. July 7th is a date that already marks the calendar with fire. The Vatican will publish the official document for the implementation of the Synod on Synodality, a text that, according to the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops itself, will provide practical and theological guidelines for translating the synodal proposals into local reality. But behind the elegant word guidelines lies a real earthquake. The document promises to touch on explosive issues: greater lay participation, leadership roles for women, consultative assemblies that could limit, at least in appearance, papal authority, and even an overhaul of canonical decision-making processes to democratize the Church. We are not talking about a small administrative reform, but a rewriting of the rules of the ecclesial game. The official press release of the Episcopal Conference of July 2nd, which pre-announces the text of July 7th, does not mince words. This document is the final stage of a journey that began 4 years ago and will provide dioceses with concrete tools to translate the Synod's proposals into contextualized pastoral practices. He adds that the text was approved with the direct blessing of Pope Leo XIV after a heated debate in the meeting of the Ordinary Council of the Synod, which concluded on the 30th of June. And here, the contradictions already emerge. Leo XIV, on the one hand, confirmed the direction traced by Francis, that is, listening, dialogue, and participation. On the other hand, in his gestures and in some recent speeches, he has shown that he wants to refocus everything on Christ and the Roman Curia, almost as if to recall order around the heart of the Church. And it is precisely this contrast that makes July 7th a ticking time bomb, because the text, if faithful to the premises, could really undermine consolidated hierarchies, calling into question who decides what in the Catholic Church: Rome or the local assemblies, the Pope or the consensus of the dioceses. The old pyramid risks turning into a horizontal network where the top no longer commands alone. But at the same time, Leo XIV seems to say, do not go beyond the gospel. Remain anchored to the faith. In short, we are faced with a document that promises to revolutionize everything, while trying not to change anything essential. A paradox? Yes, and that is precisely what makes it so dangerous or so fascinating, depending on your point of view. After years in which we have heard the word synodality repeated like a slogan in speeches, press releases, conferences, now we will truly find it in the field. No longer just theories and good intentions, but rules, practices, and concrete indications that will arrive in the dioceses and parishes. And here the real question arises: what will happen in detail? The official anticipations are few but significant. According to the statement from the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops and drafts circulated between October and November, the document will offer theological and pastoral guidelines for implementing the Synod's proposals, with a strong emphasis on 3 areas: greater participation of the laity, the valorization of women, and closer dialogue between local churches and Rome. Among the probable themes is a concrete invitation to strengthen parish and diocesan pastoral councils, tools already provided for by canon law but little used, and to increase the involvement of the faithful in local pastoral decisions while maintaining final authority in the hands of the bishops. It could also propose new ways to welcome women into pastoral leadership roles, although without yet going into the merits of a possible female diaconate. On this point, previous documents speak of open discernment, and the July document could simply reiterate the need for further study. Another probable section will concern the ways in which local churches should dialogue with Rome. Not full autonomy, but greater space to express their needs while remaining in communion with the Pope. In short, the document is intended as a guide for walking together, not as a manual for revolution. It is unlikely to immediately give the green light to radical changes, but it will indicate directions to explore, leaving the door open to a more participatory and inclusive future, always within the confines of Catholic doctrine. Pope Leo XIV gave a clear signal. Synodality is not the goal, but a tool. In his first speeches, he made it clear that the Church must not be reduced to a parliament or a simple democratic community, but must remain firmly founded on the gospel, on tradition, and on the Petrine ministry. On June 26, speaking to the Synod Council, he clearly said that synodality is a style, an attitude that must serve the mission of the Church and not replace it. In his symbolic gestures, Leo XIV confirmed this vision. He brought back to Rome the traditional ceremony of the imposition of the pallium on archbishops, which his predecessor had decentralized, and he reaffirmed the centrality of the Curia and the Pope as the point of unity of the Church. His words have always insisted on one principle: synodality is useful only if it remains oriented towards Christ, if it builds communion and not division. But here the tension arises. The document to be released on July 7th could open up scenarios that go far beyond what the Pope seems to want to allow. If, as official sources have anticipated, it does indeed encourage greater participation by lay people and women, stronger pastoral councils, and greater dialogue between Rome and local churches, there will inevitably be those who will interpret it as a green light to transform the Church into an increasingly horizontal and less hierarchical structure. This does not mean that the Pope did not foresee the risks, but that it will be difficult to contain them once the document is in the hands of the dioceses. The guidelines could provide a pretext, especially in more progressive contexts, to push local initiatives that challenge the cohesion of the universal Church. And if in some dioceses the involvement of lay people and women remained within the bounds of tradition, in others it could transform itself into pressure for changes that affect doctrine. Here lies the real paradox. Leo XIV speaks of balance, the centrality of the gospel, and fidelity to tradition. But the document that is about to be released, although presented as an aid to living synodality in communion, could become the fuse of new divisions and controversies. It is not difficult to imagine that the coming months will see dioceses, episcopal conferences, and Rome engaged in interpreting and containing a process that, at least on paper, was supposed to unite, but which risks generating even stronger tensions. What do you think? If you liked the video, comment, Amen. God bless you.